Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Steve Shanks, CRO and partner at Ad Results Media, and I am very privileged today to announce our guest, Bert Kreischer, podcaster, TV host, star, actor, comedian, producer,
Elite
elite
athlete.
athlete. Sorry, I forgot that one. Elite athlete.
One bear of two bears,
goer.
one cave.
Yes, one bear of two bears, one cave. And
The Bert of Bill Bert. Keep going.
I don't know. I don't know how you get day to day, go day to day with this many things in your life.
I literally, let me tell you something. And it has gotten so busy. When you're younger as a comic, you want to be busy. I think that's what got us all into podcasting is this is before social media was what it is today. It was just taking off. We were all sitting around doing nothing all day long. And then we had the opportunity to go to Joe's and do a podcast. And Joe told us all, you got to do a podcast. And then all of a sudden you start doing podcasts and then they start getting successful. And next thing you know, you're doing 2 podcasts in a day, 3 podcasts, 4 podcasts a day. I'm sitting outside the shower, waiting to get in a shower with my wife, going through my schedule. And I mean, like literally, I've got someone on the phone going, okay, your Thursday, I see a hole at 11:30 to 11:45. Is there any way you could hop on? And you're like, are you serious? And what's crazy is when I started, by the way, you're going to not talk at all. I feel like I'll be all over this.
No, that's fine. Keep going.
When I first started doing, podcasts and doing the road, anyone who had a podcast, I would do their podcast. I'd cram in time because I knew how important it was for me to have someone do my podcast. And I'm still doing that. So I'm doing a wine podcast later today. Where I'm drinking 5 bottles of wine.
I don't know if I'm happy that we got you before that or that I should have done a better scheduling job and got you right afterwards. But that sounds amazing. So now why, so you kind of answered some of this, but why do you think so many comedians are doing podcasts today?
I think it was an extension of social media. I think for some people, it lends itself better for a guy like me or a guy like Segura, a guy like Joey Diaz or a guy like Joe or a guy like Chris Hardwick, a guy like, throw the rock and you'll find them to communicate with our fans in a long form as opposed to in one tweet. I think who was succeeding in the one tweet, the one video, the one post format wasn't us. And so, but you get us there with maybe a drink, a cocktail, or something else, and all of a sudden we're telling stories and we're laughing with each other, and it was. I remember discovering podcasts as a comedian, as a fan, and just the feeling when you listen to a story and you be like, God. And by the way, not even just comics. I'm talking like. I remember hearing one on Radiolab one time about this astronaut getting stuck inside his chamber and he's about to die and his mask is fogging up and all he's got is a picture of his daughter inside his mask and he's looking at it going, come on, man, just get me through. I'm sitting on a treadmill going, this is the most engaging entertainment I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah, that's and as I look at the podcast charts and what podcasts are successful, a majority of them are comedians that have taken and extended into podcast. And my hypothesis has always been, and to your point, you get to engage with them long form, but comedians who are so authentic and let you into their lives in such a deep manner, that's about as authentic, as organic as possible, which is what podcasts are all about. And I really feel like that helps you guys connect with that audience. And let me know if you think that's
no. I think yes. I think that's part of it. I think first of all, comedians are super open books. Like when we're at our best, we tell you everything about our lives. And if that is not where we're at our best, say like someone like Rogan who keeps very private, Rogan puts an insane amount of thoughts. He puts an insane amount of time into his thoughts. So Joe's brain never sits idle. So if he's got. And the same as me, same as Joey, same as any podcaster, any comic podcaster out there, we think a lot because we're trying to drive comments. We're trying to drive bits for our stand-up. And sometimes this is the best launching pad for us is, catcalling. I spent the day today thinking about catcalling. The day. Now, there's a few ideas that'll go into a bit, but there's 10 ideas that also go great on a podcast where you can then workshop it with your fellow comedians. And I think that's one of the reasons, notoriously, I think the reason I don't mean to say like actors haven't excelled at podcasting. They totally have. Some really have. But usually it's the thoughtful actors, the actors who maybe have written scripts and written their own projects and produced their own projects, as opposed to just the plant in place, say the line actor. And it has to do with, really honestly with having your own thoughts and thinking your own words. And that's stand-up comedy. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, no, and I've seen all the Netflix specials, so I know all I'm a fan of the podcast, so I listen and see everything. Now, it doesn't seem like you take that much material from the podcast and bring it over to the actual stand-up, but are you...
That's the part that sucks. That's the part that sucks, is that like I had this great joke that I told on a podcast, and I told it on stage. I told it on a podcast, told it on stage, and if you hadn't heard it, it was a great joke. But if you heard the podcast, you're like, I heard that on the podcast in a weird way. I took it. What was the joke? I took a shit in Asia. I took a shit in Japan once. It was so bad, the guy in the stall next to me threw up. I told that to Tom, and Tom was like dying laughing. And I was like, no, it's a true story. It was a true story. And then I tried it on stage. I wanted to open my special with it. And it just was not the right way to open a special because they had heard it on a podcast. And I was bummed. So I changed it to, I just had to rework it. It was, I opened my special with it. I took a shit in a gender neutral bathroom that was so bad. The woman in the stall next to me had to question her politics. I like that one better. I like that. And by the way, they're both true. I take some aggressive shit sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, got it. And it's hard for me. And I am not a professional question asker or journalist. So I'm trying to enjoy the content and make sure I'm staying on point. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because I never hear you take one, very rarely hear you take one side to another. And but it's got to be fun and also challenging that you have to come up with all this new content and great content.
Oh, today I was talking to Bill Burr on Bill Bert, and I said to him something to the effect of, I was talking about catcalling, and I figured out the joke in the middle of telling him the premise of what I was working on I figured out the joke and I bit my tongue. You know how hard it is for a comic to bite your tongue and not go for the punchline, just to let it sit there and then pray to God he doesn't guess it in front of you because you want it for your special. It's tough.
Right. And do you ever forget them? Do you have to write them down immediately afterwards?
I wrote it down immediately. I actually said, stop, and I wrote it down. Yeah, but it was so funny in the early days. You tell a story and people would be like, man, you got to tell that on stage. Like the machine story. What I'm famous for happened on a podcast. I was on Joe's podcast. I ended up going on his first podcast once, telling a few stories. He thought they were hilarious. And then I was like, oh, remind me to tell you about the time I got involved with the Russian mafia and robbed a train. And he was like, wait, what? And then I come back, I tell the story on his podcast. He's like, you got to tell it on stage. And it was a good podcast story, but when I worked it on stage, it just got better and better. And then the fans showed up and they're like watching it grow. And all of a sudden it's like a community raises a child, they say. Well, in the podcast community, we can raise an act. So,
yeah. Well, and actually, so per that, so when I hear the machine, I absolutely am dying. So I've been to a few of your shows, and I will. What's interesting is it's almost like you add new details sometimes. I feel like I know the core basis of the show, but I hear like a unique detail, and I'm like, oh, I never caught that. And like, it's just I don't know if you're doing that on purpose or if that's just but it's amazing every time I hear it, and I enjoy it every time I hear it because I feel like I learn a little bit more.
Oh, thanks. I do it out of boredom. Is I'll either write a joke and slide it in that night, or sometimes I like to go off on tangents about small details I remember, and it makes it interesting for me.
Yeah, it makes it more. Well, also going back to forgetting, so I was at the last one I was at. You were at San Marcos doing the drive-through, and
oh yeah.
You were in it was the day that you. I will never forget it because I know that Bert Kreischer finds things.
Shit! That was so great, wasn't it?
That was amazing. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either. I of course we didn't see. I wasn't able to see it until you posted it on social media of you actually returning the ring from SeaWorld. But that was
that was great,
unbelievable, and that fits naturally into some of the other content as well. But during that set, you were probably about 5 minutes through a joke, and all of a sudden a car alarm goes off, and it's two teenagers, and you set some, throw some jokes in, and then you bring it back. And I mean, all of my buddies were extremely impressed that you could be that deep into a joke, go down a completely different line of thought, play off of the moment, and then immediately go right back to the joke right where you left off and complete it. So I say that's hard.
Well, sometimes I don't. Okay, sometimes I go off on the tangent, and everyone goes, "Whatever happened to the child?"
All right, so I guess we got you at a good point. But to bring this back now to some of the advertisers and podcast in general. Yeah. So like our firm, a big thing why advertisers come to us and we get clients is because we're trying to bring the value of podcast sponsorships, integrations in with the podcast host and find that magic overall so that it's really a successful relationship for everyone involved. So I think some just want to know like how you like to partner with brands and, what's really like how does it come across the most natural, the most, additive for everything and really pull it all together.
I love anything in studio. Any of the integrations we bring in studio are really fantastic. Also, anything that's immersive in my life. I can name so many brands that there's a podcast sponsor we haven't had in a long time called Corkle. They make wine glasses. That's always going to be in my life because I'm always going to keep drinking wine, and it's just sitting there. The other day I threw it in my Instagram story, and I was like, oh, yeah, they were a great sponsor. I wonder whatever happened to them, As soon as it can fit into my life, if it's more mashable with my life, then all of a sudden it's ingrained. I mean, Bear Bottoms is a sponsor we have over at Two Bears, One Cave. I put on their jogger pants the other day, and I loved them. And all of a sudden now that's in there with Viore, with all these clothing sponsors jump into your life. And all of a sudden that's your clothes, and you're wearing them all day. And I think then it makes it easier for us to speak to the brand when we're selling it to our fans. I have so many that I mean, my dad is taking these collagen peptide pills that we've been that we're a sponsor, and he found them in my house. My wife's dad steals our CBD MD. I mean, like so many of these brands become ingrained with your life. And I think sometimes I always want the brands to know this is like, I want you in my studio and I want you in my life. I want to do more with you. I really honestly feel like the brands that sponsor on podcasts are the forward-thinking brands out there. They're the ones doing things better, faster, quicker, and smarter. I remember watching as an ad sales rep from Travel Channel, when I worked at Travel Channel, I would listen to companies, and I don't mean to shoot myself in the foot in any other direction, but I would listen to companies brag about being in magazine or on radio. And I remember saying very candidly to an ad sales company, to ad sales people, whatever that is, people with brands, why don't you get into podcasting? And they were like, is that even a thing? And the fact that they would say that, I go, you're not going to be there in 10 years. And then all of a sudden you'd find these people like I think at the time, one of the big one was Dollar Shave Club, right? And then suddenly you see them go public and they blow up, and you're like, oh yeah, because they're talking to the people who are going to buy their thing. And I mean, it really, I feel like these brands that are buying in on podcasts get it. They get, and they understand that we feel blessed to have them as sponsors. So when we get them, we want to put them into our lives, whether it's a knife or, like I if I'm going to use one of my knives, what's my Asian knife I love that I cut sushi with? What is it? Kamikoto. If I listen to my podcast, my producer there. If I'm going to use my Kamikoto knife, I'm throwing it on my Instagram too, because I love that knife. Like it becomes an actual extension of who I am, and it's on all my social media posts. And I think that's when it works the best.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And we've been coining that term within our agency and telling our, the advertisers that it's a 360 integration. So
It is a 360. And by the way, I'm ready for the next level. That's what I'm ready for these sponsors to understand that you're talking not just to some kid in his mom's basement making a TV show. I'm Bert Kreischer. I have been on Travel Channel for 9 years. I have been on television for over 22 years. I make movies, and I also have a podcast. The podcast is the thing I'm most passionate about, next to my stand-up and my specials that I put on Netflix. But I want to take it to the next level. So when the podcast, when our sponsors want to go to the next level and want to cut out the middleman totally, and let's make a TV show with just us, that's what I'm like. Dude, hey, you guys are thinking out of the box. I'm thinking out of the box. Let's think out of the box together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to your also earlier point, like so many of these advertisers that are in podcasts right now are thinking out of the box and are the ones that are willing to think creatively and kind of pushing those boundaries. So I live by everything. I have my Liquid IV right here. I'm wearing MeUndies.
Don't get me started on Liquid IV. I had Bird Dog hit me up and they're like, hey man, you want to try to think something up with us? And I was like, that's how we do it. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's summer's coming up. Throw me some Bird Dog pants. Let's get some videos shot. Because part of me also is like the payoff for my fans. If it's funny and good and awesome, my fans are going to respond. So
it goes back to what we started this conversation. Like if it's authentic, organic, natural, something you'll actually use and like something you want to use, then the fans and the listeners will hear that, experience that, and want to purchase and therefore be able to build it from there.
What people got to remember is that the first podcast sponsor, if you ask any of us LA comics, the first real podcast sponsor ever in our books was Fleshlight. Okay. That was the first podcast sponsor. Now listen, let me tell you something. Okay. Fleshlight delivered on the promises that they offered. They delivered. Now that is where all of our brains started. So we believe anything is going to be just as good as that Fleshlight.
Not to date back to my history, but I started way back on the client side where we were selling Pro Flowers and Sherry's Berries, and we were right there with them. And we're like, do we want our ads running right next to that? And I'm like, but it's all right. But hey, it's part of podcasting history, and it
is
building from there. So as you one thing, like as you're taking on new projects and all, like how do you even have time for the podcast? Like even go to like Two Bears, One Cave. You are recording so many other skits outside of it and building up content so that podcast, YouTube, like everything, like how do you make time for all of these different things?
Well, number one, it's not work for me. Like I don't consider it work. So that's like, it's just like stand-up. I don't really consider stand-up work, So other things are work in this business that you will get jobs and that it's considered a job. Especially when it's fun, like stand-up, podcasting is fun. So I prioritize it. I just enjoy it. I mean, really, honestly, if you're going to say to any comedy fan, hey, you got an hour or 2 hours every Wednesday to sit down with Tom Segura and just see if you can find a way to giggle the hardest you've ever giggled in your entire life. Everyone I can name a million people that would say yes, I'll make time for that. Same with Bill Burr. Same with today. I have Greg Fitzsimmons and Mike Gibbons coming over from Sunday. They do Sunday papers every Sunday. I have them coming over. I make time for it. I love it. It's my favorite thing I do other than stand up. It's my favorite thing I do. So I just prioritize it. I'm going into a bubble to do a project starting April 6th. And I just make sure in my contract that I go, no, I got it. You're my priority while I'm here. But when I have free time, I got to do Bill Bert. I got to do Two Bears. I got to do Bertcast.
Yeah, if you cut the time, you make the time for it, it's going to happen. So that statement in and of itself is the reason that advertising on a podcast is such a wise move, in my opinion. Passion begets passion. No one's doing a podcast that isn't absolutely passionate about it. If you're passionate about something, you're going to give it 110% every
time you do it. I don't ever half-ass a podcast ever, ever, ever. And so I know my fans know that, and they're showing up. And, you know, I think my fans know the equation. They go, no, this is how they pay bills. I appreciate it when they are looking for a razor or Sherry's Berries or a fleshlight, you name it. They go, oh, I'm going to use a promo code. Thompson Cigars, why not?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, we see, because, you know, we get to work with the advertisers to see how many people are using the codes and all of that. And to your point, they really want to make sure. And like sometimes they'll send emails to those individual clients and saying, I want to make sure, like Bert said that, you know, this is the must have, like, please let Bert know that I got it. And, you know, I'm so pumped to use it. So like, it's interesting to see the fan connectivity and just how much that really draws them into it. But I agree with you. They absolutely get that the podcaster that speaks to it, like, gets the credit for it, and they want to make sure that they're giving that credit. So
yeah, listen, I haven't had Blue Apron sponsor a podcast in about a year, but I eat 2 Blue Aprons a week. Okay. To this day.
That's a sore subject, since Blue Apron was our client and they loved everything. And then your last spot was our last week with them as a client. So
for real?
But for real, but I still support, like, we were with them for a long time, and I still support. But your Blue Apron spots and the story of, you know, bringing Blue Apron with your family was something that I actually used to show, like, how authenticity and how authentic messages come together. Because your story, and I won't share your story on here if you don't want me to, but like, share it. Yeah, I mean, you said that was, you know, I'll paraphrase it, but like, it was something that really brought your family together, and like, you know, with everything that you're doing and all that time you were spending elsewhere, like, it was one project and, you know, a fun activity that would bring the family together, where you'd spend solid family time and create great memories.
My daughters won't be whores because of Blue Apron.
We didn't put that in the copy, but
yeah.
but that would have been authentic. So that would have, you know, in my book, that would have been something. But no, it was, you know, so I personally get great satisfaction, like, when I hear, like, because we, as an agency, we listen and we record we actually grade every single spot. So like, we hear every single thing that you're doing, like, and spots like that where you have that true authentic connection, where it's like, you can tell, like, you know, using, like, and it just, it pulls the magic together of podcasting. And I actually really think there's no other media, whether it's nothing that can pull that authenticity like podcast in long form. So you
put it on my body, it never comes off. Whoop, I live and die by my Whoop. I check my Whoop every morning. And this is a podcast sponsor. This is a podcast sponsor, by the way, that Nathan Florence, a guy I just had on the podcast, he's got one because of it. I mean, like, everyone's got one because they were like, oh yeah, man, that is pretty legit. Like, that tracks your sleep and your HRV. Are you serious? So yeah.
No, it's amazing. Now, my wife would kill me if I didn't ask, because one of her favorite comedies is Van Wilder. So how do you feel about that movie in general? And I know
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
Mm-mm.
Did I not hear that? Okay.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it because I had nothing to do with it. You know, like, I mean, I think it's really interesting folklore about my story or my journey. Is, you know, I was written up in Rolling Stone magazine in 1997. They wrote a 6.5-page article about me, called me the number one party animal in the country. Oliver Stone optioned the rights to my life. And then once that stuff starts, it's out of your control. I ended up signing a deal with Will Smith and going and trying to take my story over there to television. And at the same time, you know, people, I mean, I guess, and I have, like I said, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It's just what's been told to me through the people that made the movie at different parts of the vet told me, that they just kind of moved it over, changed my name, changed some other people's names, kept some names, oddly enough, and it became the movie Van Wilder. But yeah, I have no ill will, no hard feelings. I got no lawsuits coming. I think it's a cool footnote. And I said I will watch it with Ryan Reynolds. I will watch it with Ryan Reynolds on the Bertcast whenever he's willing.
Let's make that happen, and we'll get some advertisers come along. Okay, that would be a great watch party, and then again, let's see if we can make that happen. The other Another question I got from the Lords was, will there be another dunk competition in 2021 with Tom, or are you going to let him keep the title of dunk champion?
Just because I know they're listening and this is important, I had a very moving moment with my buddy, Tom Segura, in a medical transport. He was in a wheelchair, no brace on his leg, broken arm, just wrapped in tape. It was heat of COVID, right? The heat of the hot spot. We're driving all through from where Tom lives to Cedar Sinai to take him into the emergency room the day after the dunk. And he looked at me in the saddest fat guy eyes I've ever seen in my life. And he goes, I'm never going to play basketball again. I'm never going to jump. And then he looks, he goes, I'm never jumping again. I'm never jumping again. And he just sat there, and I thought, I will never play basketball again either after watching what the fuck happened to you. So I think he has the title. He is the dunk champ forever. He's got it, man. God bless him. I'm the run your friend to the hospital champ.
Oh God, the Two Bears One Cape special is fantastic for anyone that I have to go back and watch that. But
it was epic.
The memes that came from that too were pretty epic as well. So
I said I got in my car, I called my wife and I said, oh my God, Tom, I think broke his leg and broke his arm. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah. And she goes, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I said, first off, we're going to make a ton of money. I go, we're going to be swimming in cash, baby doll.
It was great. It was painful to watch, but it was good to know that he's down on the path to recovery, which made it more enjoyable to watch.
He bounced back better than I thought. He's down like 35 pounds. He is walking around fine. His hand isn't operating perfectly yet, but he's lifting weights. He's doing great. I'm really proud of him.
Awesome. Well, I think that was everything we had. So I want to say thank you again. Appreciate all your time. Know you're extremely busy for all the things that we talked about, and still you're still making time to come on and speak with just an amateur and trying to get it out to some advertisers. So I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone who watches this will appreciate it as well.
I just wanted to show off my new studio, I just want everyone to know we haven't slowed down just because of COVID. We are ready for the doors to open up and go back to live podcasting. I cannot wait.
We can't wait as well. It looks a beautiful new studio. So again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And good luck with everything.
Awesome, Steven. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Bert.
All right. I'll talk to you later.